As he set foot on the island, Bernardo couldn't help feeling a bit curious. Was Lapino still waiting to be rescued? No. He was probably drinking champagne with the ravens. Did ravens drink champagne? Did rabbits? Bernardo felt oddly thirsty, come to think of it. Why had he chosen the Sky Ripper? Bernardo never made plans that required constant vigilance. He was a hero. He didn't think too much. He just went with his gut and hoped it all worked out. The Sky Ripper was a long shot. He'd have to devote himself to it. No side journeys, no rescuing old friends. That was against his nature. Could he stick with it? Who made all these ore chests anyway? You could have quite a business doing that. That was always a rush. Who are you looking at? Oh, right. No one. Ah, the road less traveled, thought Bernardo. How intriguing. That had been his mistake before, trusting his old friend Lapino, who'd been through so many battles with him and shared so many heartaches, who he'd rescued so many times. What was up with that guy anyway? If only he had some way to break the ice. Or convince it he was a friend. my statue. Sleep tight, thought Reynardo. We'll always have Paris, he thought. And then he died. The cake. He'd been promised cake. Puzzle. Reynardo loved puzzles. Except when he couldn't figure them out. On the other hand, if there was a puzzle, it was probably meant to keep people away from something good. This one looked familiar. Had he lost this one in a card game? Welcome back, he thought. See? With enough leverage, you could go anywhere. There it was. Skyripper's armature. The stuff that dreams are made of. Engineers' dreams, anyway. The device was intricate. No one alive had the skill to make a thing like it. How was it part of a weapon at all? He'd have to ask a scientist. But first, he'd get the second piece. Skyripper had a heart. A core that had come to rest on the next island. Well, there was another island he could reach. Zenobia had just invaded it with her father's Raven battalions. She must be encamped there still. But fighting Zenobia now, that made no sense at all. He'd already sacrificed one friend to get this armature, was it? He didn't need to hurry to face her. She would find him. It was a no-brainer. Doubt sunk in before he was even out of sight of the Farfarer. Why had he chosen the Skyripper? It was the sort of path he'd always avoided. The path of responsibility, of seriousness. Had he grown up? He didn't feel grown up. He'd made this decision from his gut, like he always did. Somehow, he'd impulsively decided to stop being impulsive. Did that make any sense? Ah, Zenobia. Now that he knew she still loved him, he wanted to go back to her. But that hadn't worked out, had it? Maybe it was time to find the core of the Skyripper.
present? For me?
There was something sour in the air. Like the earth had ruptured over something that had been fermenting for a very long time. Where did that go to? There were fewer and fewer trees. There were only these huge crystalline growths. Had those been here before? He no longer heard birds except for the feverish cawing of the ravens when they attacked. He couldn't smell the small animals of the forest, the mice and rabbits. Where had they gone? And he was getting hungry too. This was an unhealthy place to be.
Guys actually tell each other apart? Because I'm thinking name tags.
The 20-sided core made him feel physically sick. Once he had sneaked into a temple of the dark arts, and he hadn't liked what he smelt and saw there. This felt like that. As quick as he could, he wrangled the icosahedron into the armature. The wheels began to spin, then glow. The sick feeling quickly spun away. Now he only felt sad. He had lost good friends for this war apparatus. Maybe Lupino wasn't such a good friend. Yeah, that made him feel better. He carried his prize back to the Farfarer. Now, he had to make his next move. There was a key Imperial outpost on the Nexus. If this really was some sort of super weapon, he could use it to wreak havoc on the enemy. And if it wasn't, well, better to know that before the final battle. But maybe he should show it to some scientists first. There was an observatory on the Nexus. Maybe he should go there before he fired it. Of course. Why had the parts of the Sky Ripper only surfaced now, thousands of years after the Transcendent Emperor had dismantled it? The mad Emperor Isengrim had performed terrible, bloodthirsty rituals to invoke the lost gods. Was that why these ancient artifacts were rising out of the ground? How perfect, then, that the Sky Ripper would reappear to be his destruction. There had to be something useful in these things, didn't there? Ice walls only let you through if they knew you were cool. Bernardo wondered idly if people who had built these poles had really, really long tentacles. The right jewel could really give you an edge. The wrong, well, it still looked pretty, didn't it? A legendary weapon was exactly what the rebellion needed. They were outnumbered. The once kind Emperor had become a tyrant. But his ravens stayed loyal, for he fed them his victims, and the other animals were too frightened to rebel. Renato shuddered at what the Emperor was trying to do. To bring back the lost gods, the Black Harvest, the Black Sun? No. He would stop that Toad, no matter what the risk.
This would be the perfect place for a tic-tac-toe board.
Right.
Renato was thrilled. The scientists seemed to think he'd put the Sky Ripper together right. But one Toad was worried.
Yeah, Sky Ripper could tear a hole in existence itself. There are invisible strings that tie the universe together. If Sky Ripper cut one, the hole would widen and widen till our whole existence fell into it.
Another Toad sighed.
Irving still believes in string theory.
At least go see Calaveras.
Yeah, said the worried Toad.
He knows more than anyone else has forgotten about the Transcendent Emperor.
If anyone could tell him how to use this weapon safely, it would be Calaveras. It was he who had told Renato how to find it in the first place. But maybe he had to give up on using it as a weapon. Maybe he had to go to the secret rebel base and ask the generals there what he could do with a weapon that he dared not use. Well, he should have known he'd... Maybe it was the cold. But after a few steps, Renato's optimism started to slump. What if Calaveras couldn't help? Did Renato dare use the Sky Ripper? Oh, he hated that he had chosen this path. It was so much simpler to rescue friends and attack enemies. Even if some of those friends were more trouble than his enemies, some of those enemies had been friends before and might be lovers after. No, okay, it wasn't
all that much simpler. No. Physics made his brain hurt. That, at least he was sure of.
Don't look down, he thought. To everything, there is a season. He turned over and died. No one could beat Renato at hot potato. Once again, Renato was dead right. Or actually just dead. Surprised that he didn't feel more pain. Just a bit dizzy. Ooh. Maybe I should follow my nose, thought Renato. No skateboarding, the sign said.
to focus on the now. The ravens who seemed everywhere all the time, where did they hatch from? Were there giant raven hatcheries somewhere, or did they have families? Ooh, he didn't want to think about raven mummies raising their darling raven chicks. Yeah, Calvaris would help. He would make Renato feel better about using the Sky Ripper. And then Renato wouldn't have to worry about ravens ever again. What dreams may come, he thought. And then he found out.
Mother wasn't watching.
Fruit healing? Well, it was the latest fad, but it seemed to work. He wished there were more pylons he could use the hook on. They really needed to construct additional pylons.
Had that door been opened before? Bernardo had been focusing all his energies on the Sky Ripper. If Calaveras could not fix it, he'd be out of options. He would have to assault the Imperial fleet empty-handed. All this ore, Bernardo could forge a really great sword. He was a master forger. That probably wasn't the right word. Calaveras had never let him down.
Yeah, of course I can make it work better.
But when Bernardo explained about the strings, Calaveras grew thoughtful.
Oh, strings, you say? Well, the Arcana do speak of the ties that bind the world.
He drew many intricate symbols in the dirt.
Yeah, so, according to my calculations, each time you fire, I'm afraid there's a 1 in 120 chance you'll destroy the universe.
That's pretty good odds. That's like rolling, 21 dice and they all come up 6. What are the odds of that?
What? No! It's more like 2.716s in a row.
Anyway, with those odds, it won't happen if I use it just once.
Yeah, no, that's not right. Each time you use it... Okay, look, just don't use it ever.
All right, I guess.
As he sailed away from the mountains, Bernardo could see clouds darkening. Rain? No. Ships. Imperial ships, swarming thick as bees.
This was it. The big battle. They could not afford to lose this one. What if it did not go well? What if he had to use the Sky Ripper? Could he gamble the universe? On the other hand, what were the odds of rolling 21 6s in a row? The battle was not going spectacularly well. What had the rebels been thinking? They'd been thinking he would bring the Sky Ripper, or the Iblis Stone, or that he'd sideline Zenobia somehow. or turn her. Couldn't he use the Skyripper just once? After all, if chances were 1 in 128, that meant he'd for sure be okay the first time. They'd get worse each time he used it, but the first time would be okay, right? He wasn't sure that it was right. So he didn't fire the Skyripper. He just brought it along, in case.
He hadn't noticed that path before. Someone had told him the odds didn't change just because you'd had a streak of good luck. His gut told him that was wrong, though. And he always listened to his gut. On the other hand, 128 chances to win. But one of them, he'd destroy the universe. Ooh, that seemed a bit serious. Maybe he could defeat the Emperor without firing the Skyripper. Maybe he could bluff, but with a real weapon. Like in cards, when you had 3 knaves, but you pretended you had a fizbin. That could work.
Nothing will get your blood pumping like a bit of killing.
Building these platforms was so expensive, they'd run out of budget for guardrails.
He set up the Skyripper and let it warm up. He would bluff if he had to. Zenobia came out, flanked by a very daunting platoon of ravens. You won't actually use that, she said in that annoying, I know everything because I'm a cat and you know nothing because you're just a fox voice she had. Or I know the odds. Good. Because there's a real chance you could destroy the universe. No, not the first time I use it. The odds are too low. What? No? Yeah, sure. The first time, the odds are practically nothing. They only go up if I use it a bunch more times. No, but that's not how odds work. Didn't you pay attention in class? Now surrender, or I'll use it. Just once, he said. Don't.
He felt sure the odds were with him. You have to go with his gut. That's what heroes do. Fire, he said. Please? The Skyripper fired. With a tremendous whoosh, the Emperor's flagship went up in flames. It was awesome. Then he noticed.
There was a hole in the air. A blackness, like a tear in a parchment. Wind was blowing into it, widening it. It grew larger, and even larger. Crates fell upwards into it, and the world itself seemed bent, like the reflection on a curved mirror, as it poured into the ravenous hole. 1 in 128. What are the odds? Thought Reynardo, and then everything fell into the hole and was gone.
But he'd learned another true thing. The core was powerful, but dangerous if used improperly. There would be a way to win. Reynardo could feel it. He'd have to explore choices he'd never made before he could figure it all out, though. And with that, the book's pages fluttered to the beginning once again. And he fell. The clouds parted over the Isles of Boreas. It was time to choose. The rebellion was in trouble. Ravens were scouting for the secret rebel base. They needed a game-changer. Pieces of the Skyripper had surfaced. Reynardo knew that using it could go catastrophically wrong, but he was sure he could figure out how to use it safely. Also, a temple had risen out of empty desert. The Emperor had brought the Skyripper pieces up out of ancient burial by his obscene rituals. Could this be where the Iblis Stone was hidden? Someone better get it before he does, thought Reynardo. And also, his old friend Lupino needed rescuing. Of course, Reynardo had a pretty strong suspicion that Lupino had betrayed the rebellion. But could Reynardo really leave an old friend to the Ravens? The island was windswept desert. No one went there except ostriches and ostrich hunters. The Iblis Stone. It sounded ominous. It sounded powerful. If the Emperor was searching for it, it must be dangerous. And so, Reynardo went ostrich hunting. Every child could sing verses about the Skyripper, but ancient codices held hints of other things. A stone that ate souls, a ruby that drank blood, a jewel only a righteous man could give away. Were all these things the Iblis Stone? Long hidden in the buried temple? Another ancient item that was only resurfacing now, drawn up from the Emperor's horrific rituals?
Would be fun to try out that one. And here was a handy workbench.
Renato distrusted doors that opened automatically, especially after being buried for millennia. Was this some sort of trap?
Brilliant. Lovely. Pull that hose.
Ravens were already here, cawing in frustration. They were still searching for a way in. Good. Then he hadn't come too late. When Renato went to the china shop, for some reason the owner was always nervous. Haven't you always wanted to do that? What's behind door number 2? A road less traveled. This could be fun. If it wasn't fatal, that is.
Serve the Emperor!
Of the Ravens!
Imagine getting a horse up in one of these things. He will be cursing a blue streak. There was blood on this one, so it hadn't saved its owner. Reynardo was running out of ideas. Zenobia loved him to death. The Sky Ripper destroyed everything, and Lapino was a filthy traitor. Using a stone named for an evil god seemed, unwise. But what else was there? What was the point of this gate? Did they think no one would notice the lever? The Ravens at least could not get past this point. Obviously, the temple builders knew how to deal with Tomb Raiders. This was definitely better than pulling yourself up in a bucket.
It was a stone of the purest blackness. It reflected no light, like a void made solid. Nervous, he picked it up. I can make you mighty. Who said that? It was the stone. Eager, thirsty. That seemed tempting and terribly wrong. Zenobia was the Emperor's greatest general and a potent witch. But they had been close once, and Reynardo wasn't sure he really wanted to be Emperor. Why not capture the core of Skyripper instead? It was the eye of a lost god torn out by the Transcendent Emperor to power his greatest weapon. "What's the core?" said the stone anxiously. Was he listening to a talking rock? Ah, but the rock had a point. If the stone could truly turn him into a powerful warrior, he could defeat the Emperor with the very weapon the wicked old Toad had sought for himself. To be a hero, you had to sacrifice old friends sometimes, especially when they'd become enemies.
As he placed the impossibly black crystal in his gauntlet, Reynardo had a sudden vision. Charred fields covered in dead ravens below a black sun.
Was it the time of the lost gods before the Transcendent Emperor? Was it the future? Feed the souls, it whispered. Take the power. He could feel the stone's hunger for souls, its thirst for blood. All right, I get it.
This was going to be interesting.
This was the nice part of town, but the ravens had been through here. They like to take shiny things home to their nests. The ravens on Zenobia's island were no match for Reynardo. They screamed as the stones sucked out their souls. And with each death, he felt stronger. Take the power, the stone told him.
Or I could go that way, he thought. Couldn't do worse with Zenobia than he'd done with the core, could he? Gogglers. Reynardo hated gogglers. It was almost impossible to sneak past them. If one didn't spot you, another one would. Zenobia was waiting for Reynardo. She was alone, confident as always. Fire danced at the tips of her claws.
Are you here to surrender? She seemed as cocksure as he felt. But she didn't know he had the stone. And I've missed you too, love. He chuckled.
She spotted the stone and bolted without another word.
Kill the fox!
God, the ravens. Nobody said they were original.
Finally, Renato caught up to her. He had never seen her scared before. At school, she'd been the determined, brave one. Now her eyes were wide, frightened. He didn't like seeing her this way. "Kill her," whispered the stone. "You cannot win your rebellion without it." "Please." "No," said Zenobia. "Not that way." Oh, they had been so close once. Could he really feed her soul to his demonic gem? But if he spared her, he would not get the full power of the stone. Oh, how could he be the hero he wanted to be? With a flick of his wrist, he slashed Zenobia's throat. Her eyes widened even more. And then the light went out of them. Renato felt amazing. Power was rushing into him like water from a burst dam. Oh, such brilliance, exulted the Iblis stone. He felt a bit bad about killing her. He was pretty sure she still loved him. But needs must when the devil drives. Renato returned to the Farfarer and set a course for the Nexus. The Empire had a communication outpost there. He could call the Emperor directly. It was time to seize the outpost and let the Emperor know what he had done. The Nexus was beautiful. He'd never realized how beautiful. Everything glowed. The wind was so sweet. The sun so soft. The stones so warm. Black raven feathers. Black feathers. Suddenly, his eyes are filled with them. He's falling through smoke, under a dead sun. A voice calls him home. Is this a vision? Whose? Is it the time of the lost gods? Or the future? No matter. What mattered now was killing his way to the Imperial outpost and challenging the Emperor from there. It was time for a little exploration. So much. It was time to turn it into something he could use. Up ahead was Lupino. What was he doing here?
Bernardo! Hey, buddy! Hey there, old buddy! Please don't kill me!
Why would I kill you? Asked Bernardo, although he had been thinking about it.
Well, you've become... look, I mean, no disrespect at all here. Kind of evil? Maybe you should, I don't know, go to the mountains to have a think? See if maybe you're sure the stone is not all that healthy a thing to keep?
I suppose you wanted, Bernardo said, and poked Lupino in the chest for emphasis. Oh, had he just killed Lupino? Oh, damn it. Bernardo had always wanted a flying carpet. This was more like a flying tabletop, but it would do. Bernardo rampaged through the Imperial outpost like a water buffalo rampaging. At the last moment, he remembered not to kill the Farspeaker Toad. After all, he wanted a word with the Emperor.
But there was only silence. Ha! The Emperor was scared, like little girl.
Well, he would gather the rebel army and slaughter the Imperial fleet. Applauded the Iblistone. Tremendous. Then the Emperor would have to answer his Farspeaker, wouldn't he? Who are you? Asked a distant voice that sounded uncomfortably like Zenobia. What have you become? The mountains. Go to the mountains, urged another that sounded a bit like Lupino. Called the Rebel Council to let them know to gather their forces. Then he killed the Farspeaker Toad. Why? Oh, because to make sure his sword was sharp. Oh no, that's awful. So no one else could use it. Yes, that's it. Then he set off for the ruins and the secret rebel base. The ruins were crawling with ravens. Probably looking for the secret base, Renato thought. But then he realized they're probably looking for me. They must be very scared of me. Well, here I am. You are the honest warrior ever, whispered the Iblastone. And he had to agree with it, for once. Who was as good as Renato? Every day he was getting better and better.
This chest was filled with old concert t-shirts. And something useful. There was an inscription on the platform. Balaleka lessons, with an address. Urged the stone. Let me make you Emperor. Come to think of it, Renato thought as he put down another raven, why shouldn't I be Emperor? How did anybody get to be Emperor anyway? By making war. I mean, not counting the transcendent Emperor, obviously, who had banished the lost gods and started time. Yes, he should be Emperor. He would make a great Emperor. Right, Stone? Oh, right, boss. Time to die, he thought. And it was. You blinked. Long stairs. So he was close to the rebel base. It was on fire. So far, so good. He needed some way to break the ice with this wall, so to speak. It was definitely easier to fight inanimate objects. Bernardo strode into the council.
Let's do this thing. Let's make me Emperor.
They looked confused and nervous. Ah, had he mentioned the Emperor thing? He'd meant to bring that up later.
I mean, let's go win this rebellion. He waved his sword around encouragingly.
They ran. Cowards. He'd stop them. He cut down a few to inspire the others. But soon, there was no one to cut down. Well then, he'd have to attack the fleet alone.
More for me,
he said, unless it was the stone that said it.
Traitors. Traitors, all of them. They'd run rather than following him, rather than cheering him. What should he do to the cowards? Anything he wanted to. After all, he was a true hero, the best warrior there ever was. No one could stop him now.
But first, finish him. The Emperor, that is.
Where was the rebel fleet? They weren't even trying an assault. They were going to miss a day in history. The downfall of this dynasty, and a new one to take its place. He didn't have to kill all the ravens. He could enslave them. And enslave the toads, too. All the animals would worship him as a god. For he had once been a god. They would willingly give him their blood and their souls. And the world would change. Would become familiar again. This is quite the view, he thought.
It's a bicycle!
Bernardo was glowing with dark power. Already the sun had dimmed. He could do anything, he realized. He could wrap the island safely in smoke again. He was beyond a hero. He was going to become a god again. How odd, he thought, that the Iblis Stone had nothing to say about any of this. Well, no matter. Once he killed this petty Toad Emperor, he would bring back the Black Sun. Soon he'd confront the Emperor. Funny that this whole war had come about because the Emperor feared death. And now it was coming for him. There was some sort of lesson there, wasn't there? He found the Emperor and the Council huddling by his ship, plotting. They saw him and cowered before him.
Back to hell, fiend.
Croaked the Emperor desperately.
In the name of the Transcendent Emperor!
Croaked the Speaker. They held some arcane items he didn't recognize. He simply flexed his will and sucked their souls out of their bodies. And Iblis exulted. It is finished. And the void that had been a mere stone on a sword expanded. It stretched and ripped like a vast womb. And a gaze, black and pitiless as the sun, passed through the void into the land. And so time ended. He should go back to some of the choices he'd faced before. Maybe there were new paths that had opened up, like those doors he was opening up all over the map that took him to new treasures and around his enemies. But he'd learned another true thing. The Iblis Stone was evil. It would try to corrupt anyone who used it.